Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Sunday Suitcase podcast, where we spend some time unpacking health, wellness, and productivity tips for busy legal professionals. I'm Alex, your host, and today we're going to be spending some time diving into part 2 of our burnout prevention series. Last week, we spent some time exploring the importance of creating a burnout prevention plan and how to build a support team. We touched on the kinds of people that you might include in your support circle and why having the support circle matters. If you missed that episode, I recommend you go back, give it a listen. It's really going to help set the foundation for today's episode. Today, we're going to spend some time talking about what I think is one of the toughest but most important parts of this process, and that's asking for help. Why is it so hard for us to ask for help? And how can we get better at it? We're going to talk about why this matters and how you can start making that a habit. So, why is asking for help so darn hard? For a lot of us, especially in the legal field, I think there's a deeply ingrained belief that we should be able to handle everything on our own. Being independent and self-reliant are virtues that are celebrated in our field. And I think those same traits can sometimes turn into barriers that end up stopping us from reaching out when we need it. I want to talk about some of the common reasons why people struggle with asking for help. And the first one is a fear of judgment. We spend a lot of time worrying that asking for help is going to make us look incompetent. I don't think there's a single person out there, especially in our field, that hasn't felt this way. Whether it's asking a coworker a question about something, you're not sure about, getting a gut check, asking someone to just take a quick look at a draft or an email before it gets sent out. We tend to fall into this weird mental space where we somehow convince ourselves that the other person is going to judge us for reaching out and asking for help. Reason number 2, perfectionism. Again, very common in our profession. If you ever thought to yourself, no one can do this as well as I can, you're not alone. Reason number 3, guilt. Some of us feel like we're burdening other people by asking for help, even when it's something small. And I think this kind of ties into point number 1 with the fear of judgment, where we somehow build these weird scenarios in our heads that by reaching out and asking for help, the other person is going to be annoyed, or somehow they're going to think that we're asking for too much, and that prevents us from actually reaching out. Reason number 4, not knowing how. Sometimes it has absolutely nothing to do with our pride or fear. We just simply don't know how to ask in a way that feels comfortable for us. So if any of this sound familiar to you, let me tell you that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. And it's really an act of self-awareness and strength. When you ask for help, you're prioritizing your well-being, but you're also giving other people the chance to support you. And it's been my experience that most people are more than happy to help and step in. They just need to know how. So how do we get better at asking for help? I would say one of the first things you can do is start small. Begin with something that's low stakes. Maybe you ask that coworker to review a draft before it goes out. Maybe you get that gut check. Something small is really going to help you build that confidence that you need to start asking for help when you need it. Also, be specific. Instead of telling someone, I'm overwhelmed, be specific about what you need. Maybe you can say, hey, can you handle this task so I can focus on this other thing that I have to do? Clarity is going to make things easier, not just for the other person, but also for you. And this is something that I think as lawyers or, just people overall in the legal profession is something that we really need to work on. I struggled with it, and up until recently, I still struggled with it, but I've learned that I can go to my coworkers, I can go to some of the other people that are around me to ask specifically to take things on that I just don't have the mental capacity to handle at the moment. It's a difficult thing to do, but once you understand how helpful it is, you start to feel just a little bit more comfortable. Another thing you can do is think of asking for help as creating a partnership with the other person. When you allow someone else to support you, you strengthen that relationship and you build that trust. And I feel like this is something that's really important, especially at work. When I started at my current role, I didn't know anyone at my company. I work remote, so building that trust and building those relationships can be a little bit difficult. And when I started reaching out for help because there were things I just didn't understand about the company, or I had questions about people that I needed to ask about for things that I was working on, it really allowed me to build really strong connections with some of my coworkers that I had not met in person. The other thing you can do is to know that it's okay to admit when you're struggling. Be open about the things that you need, because that also helps create that deeper connection. And it encourages sometimes other people to also share the things that they're struggling with. And again, these are all things that you can slowly start to work on. Just from my personal experience, this has been something that I have struggled with, I think, my entire life, mostly because I grew up with this mindset that I had to do it all. And I think that for me, it stems from watching my mom do it all. Or I guess in my mind, she was doing it all. And I never saw my mom really ask for help. And I assumed as a kid that, she was fine. She didn't need any help from anyone. She was killing it. And, I'm pretty sure that she was struggling at some point, because no human being can do it all. But this is the example that I saw. And I'm sure it was an example that she saw growing up too. So, you tend to look at your parents and think, this is the example. This is what I'm going to strive to be when I grow up, when I get to be a parent. And for me, again, it really led to burnout a lot quicker than I thought it would. Again, I also have a different situation where, I have kids with special needs, so that adds on to the layer of complexity in my life. So it is impossible for me to do it all, but I didn't know that. I was always under the impression that I had to, and that asking for help wasn't something that I should be doing because I didn't see anybody else doing it. So if you have a similar experience where you grew up in that situation where you saw either one or two or both of your parents trying to tackle everything and not ask for help, then it makes sense that you would end up doing the same thing. I mean, I think sometimes we have to stop and think that if you do have kids, this is the example that we're also setting for them. That the expectation is that even when you're struggling, even when you're tired, even, when you just can't give anymore, you're still expected to do it all. And that's, in my opinion, that's just very detrimental because you're not meant to do it all. It's not physically possible. So, again, if you do have children, this is a good time to start teaching them that it's okay to admit that you're overwhelmed and that you can't handle something. That's what we're there for. As parents, we're there to help, we're there to guide them. And I think also as adults, we need to take that same approach. We need to understand when our body has had enough. And we also need to be honest with ourselves and, take a look around and know that we need a team of people to help us. Like, we're not expected. No one is expecting you to do everything alone. So I just want to kind of wrap up with a quick action plan for this coming week. I want you all to just take the time to focus on practicing what I like to call the art of asking for help. And here's how you can do it. Choose one area. Just identify one area of your life where you're feeling like you're just stretched thin. Maybe it's at work, home, your fitness goals, whatever it is. And then identify someone you can ask for help. So think about who in that support circle that you ended up drafting last week can help you. And remember, that could be a friend, a colleague, a family member, or, someone you work with, anyone. Make that ask. Be specific and clear about what you need. And remember to frame it as a collaboration rather than a burden. Don't make the assumption that you're going to burden the person without even asking. And then reflect on that. At the end of the week, just take a few minutes to jot down how you felt when you asked for help. Were you nervous? Were you anxious? Did you hesitate? Why? Why did you hesitate? Did you have doubts that maybe you picked the wrong person to help you? Did you get any kind of reaction from the person that made you feel like, maybe this person doesn't belong in my burnout prevention team? And that's okay too. If the person reacted in a way that made you feel like this isn't someone that I can rely on, it's okay to remove them from your burnout prevention team. There's no reason why they need to be there. And just use those reflections to reinforce the habit. Don't try not to think of it in a negative way. Just try and figure out ways where you can move forward with continuing to ask for help. That's pretty much what I had for this week's episode. And just again, remember that asking for help isn't a sign of failure. I mean, it's a sign of strength. It's a sign of self-care. It's a way to prioritize your mental health. You don't have to do it alone, and building that support system is going to make a huge difference. If you found this episode helpful, please, leave me a comment, either on LinkedIn or YouTube. And I really would love to hear about your experiences with asking for help and how it's made an impact in your journey. I know for me, again, this is something that I've struggled with pretty much my entire life, and I'm also still a work in progress. But I'm really passionate about this topic because I feel like, especially in the industry that we're in, we struggle with admitting that we don't know something or that, we can't handle something. And that is, to me, one of the main reasons for burnout. So again, if you're compelled to leave a comment, either on LinkedIn or YouTube, I would really appreciate it. So until next time, I hope you all take care of yourselves and that you have a wonderful week.